What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome back. I got a very special guest here today. I got Colonel Tony Shaffer here back with us, and he is just an awesome guy. Really, no introduction needed. We did a long introduction with him here last time, and glad to have you back here on the show, Colonel Tony.
Jimmy, great to be here. I enjoyed our conversation. I like things that just kind of flow, and you know how to make things flow, and I mean that in the best possible way. So.
Thanks. So yeah, we just had North Korean President Kim Jong-un went to Russia for almost a week. It was like 6 days or so.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll have to see how much we actually learn about what they did, a potential arms deal there. I think they definitely are going to have an arms deal. What are your thoughts about what happened there with North Korea and Russia?
Well, I think first off, the length of time, it's hard to find the door. Like, was it Bob Welch talked about that in the song? It's hard to, because I think they had a lot of vodka. I think vodka was probably on the agenda. So beyond the vodka, no, I think they have a huge deal. Un toured a number of factories. That's a clue. And I think they engaged in detailed conversations relating to technology. And this is one of the things that I don't think people are fully understanding. It's like, yeah, I'm sure Un is going to give Putin conventional weapons. I mean, the North Koreans right now, Jimmy, have 1.4 million people in uniform. They're the fourth largest military. There was even talk, and again, underreported because people don't want to talk about facts. They talked about kicking in 50,000 troops. That is, the North Koreans kicking in 50,000 troops to fight with the Russians in Ukraine. Again, no, but I don't understand how this stuff doesn't get reported. It's like, that's a pretty big deal. But they were detailed discussions. They were very productive from their perspective, not ours. But the bad guys, they did come to some conclusions. And most importantly for us, Jimmy, is the fact that Putin pledged technology to help the North Koreans continue to refine their nuclear program and their nuclear weapons delivery programs, which is our big issue. The Chinese have been developing for decades. I worked on this in the 90s. We actually had operations that were focused on trying to collect on the then nuclear program before that we knew they had bombs. I actually briefed senior leaders on certain things that were, as a matter of fact, one of the operations I was running, Jimmy, was briefed to Bill Clinton by Jim Woolsey. My friend Jim Woolsey, who was director of CIA, they briefed Clinton on one of these operations I was running that regards this issue. And I was in the outer room because it was actually an Army operation. I didn't want to talk about the fact that it wasn't CIA, it was us, Army, but another story for another day. My point being is that this goes way back. And the fact that here we are, 2023, the Russians are now pledging to provide, in exchange for conventional weapons and military support, more technology that will make their nuclear weapons more effective. I don't know how we're not worried about that, because Hawaii, my friend Tulsi Gabbard was very worried when she was in office. We would consult with her on this issue quite a bit because she thought Little Rocket Man would take a shot at Hawaii as something to see if we could get away with it, and other possessions in our allies. So I don't know, Jimmy, why we're not actually kind of breaking this out in more detail regarding what really happened, rather than, Putin's going to get weapons from North Korea. It's like, that's not the most important thing that's going on. So
I seen some comments from, who knows who, that, Russia will never need weapons. They have an unlimited supply of weapons, and then, so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, weapons are weapons. Weapons are fungible within the context of war. So the North Koreans have a lot of weapons. They have created a very effective, massive military that has tons and tons of what the Russians need right now, which is, I think, 122. I get the calibers all wrong because I'm not an artillery guy, but it's like a 155 millimeter howitzer round. They're going through these things like donuts. I mean, Russians were going through.
And so is Ukraine, and
so is Ukraine.
The US and the Europeans supplying them. I mean,
right. So
I think the pace is going to have to slow down, because this is, Russia's talking about this is going to be a decade-long war.
Yeah. So So of course, yeah. Do the Russians have unlimited resources? Well, yes and no. I mean, they've never completely divorced their economy from a wartime footing. That is to say that Putin and before him the other leaders have always set aside certain production capacity to maintain the ability to have weapons. They did it. They made that carve out within their economy. It cost them. It was expensive, still is, but clearly it benefits them now when they're at war. We've never done that. That's why right now, Jimmy, we, the United States and the West, will never be able to match the production of Russia. And that's another reason. It's like, yeah, North Koreans can throw, 50,000, a million rounds in. And the North Koreans are going to be going to still have a ton left too, because they've overproduced what they need. So it's all related.
Now, what are your thoughts? I showed a clip here recently of a Russian TV station saying the possibility of getting North Korean fighters
Right.
maybe in the future coming
Right.
over.
Right.
As they said volunteers, but we know
Yeah.
that they'll basically be mercenaries. They're not going to come volunteer for free, right?
Right.
Maybe to help the Russian army,
Right.
basically, like the Wagner group.
Correct.
What you think that is something that'll happen?
Well, as I mentioned, that's one of the things that went underreported, under the radar, is this 50,000. The number is 50,000, Jimmy, and it's not big, it's not small. It's 50,000.
Well,
And
that's bigger than the Wagner group was, right?
it is.
Somewhere
It
around
was.
there.
Yes. Yes, it was.
This
But
is the
remember,
new Wagner group.
right. Well, new and refined and better uniforms and better smelling too. I think they've changed cologne, but I don't know that for a fact. I mean, I'm rumor. But to that point, yeah, the North Koreans can afford to send 50,000 troops because they have 1.4 million people in uniform. That's a lot.
Oh my God.
And
what's the size of the U.S. Army right now?
oh my goodness, we're well under a million. I think we're talking 640. I could Google it. I think it's like
That's that's okay, but that's wow, that's now.
Well,
Don't get me wrong. If the U.S. was ever in an actual wartime situation,
right.
we would
Well, if you go by
expand dramatically, but
if you went by weight, because of Mark Milley's size, the Army's probably the heaviest it's ever been. If you like weigh everybody individually, because Mark is like half the Army size, but he's retiring. He is retiring, so he can go off and figure out what his white rage is all about. I think it's hemorrhoids, but I don't quote me on that. I don't know that.
yeah. But you look at North Korea with over a million, who knows how many men,
Right.
and China, just the size of China with
my goodness.
how many people they got? Who knows?
The largest standing army in the world, I believe. Yeah, I mean,
millions. And with the population size of China, and if we ever got into some type of war altercation over there with a billion people over there,
tough. So that's the thing. So this is one of the reasons we never want to challenge the Chinese in a land war. I mean, it would be tough because we saw this, Jimmy, in North Korea. Remember, during the Korean War, MacArthur had the North Koreans on the ropes. They had pushed them back to the Yalu River, and they were about to be completely defeated. And what lo and behold, what happens? Human wave tactics and the Chinese. So, truth be told, the United States has faced the communist Chinese in battle. And by the way, that battle, that war is not ended. The North Korean issue it remains an armistice. We have not settled that war. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I know President Trump was trying to resolve. That's why he met with UN and tried to actually start kind of pushing. I'll just tell you the truth, because I was part of the discussions on this as part of the Trump administration. The idea was for Trump to cut a deal with UN. It's like, basically, yeah, you can be a satellite of the Chinese and you can get their scraps, or you can join us. I will, make you a great man by you can join and get the economic benefits of being like South Korea. UN is not stupid. He knows how well to. And so that was the deal he tried to cut. I think UN was tempted, but obviously, one of the points I want to make to you and your audience, this thing with North Korea and Russia, it would not be happening if China didn't approve it. China has got to be 100% behind whatever UN is doing with Russia and with Putin. So.
Yeah, and China's a tough situation because, we're a large economic trade partner with them, but like when it comes to policy, it seems like they're a nightmare.
They are. Well, that brings me to another point I wanted to bring up for our discussion. Here's a little transcript from the White House. Joe Biden's White House. And it says, readout from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan's meeting with Chinese Communist Party Politburo member, director of Office of Foreign Affairs Commission, and foreign minister, a foreign minister, Wang Yi. And apparently, Jimmy, this was put out about 3 days ago under the radar. And to your point, it is complicated because the Biden administration is not happy about the fact that China is simply not doing in the policy arena what Biden wants them to do. And so Jake Sullivan basically met with Minister Yi on September 16th, 17th in Yalta, Malta.
I've been to Malta before on our honeymoon.
I haven't. I've heard it's a great place.
It is very, very beautiful.
So picture, if you will, Jake Sullivan and his bony white legs hanging out in shorts with the Chinese drinking cognac. That's what was going on apparently. And they discussed quote unquote key issues. And this is, oh, by the way, it's supposed to be a secret meeting. Shh, don't tell anybody. But they told the White House leaked it because
we're all keeping quiet here.
We're all keeping quiet here. It's right. Don't tell anybody that the Chinese weren't happy. That's why they leaked this. That's why the White House leaked this, Jimmy, because Biden were not happy with the Chinese basically saying, we're not playing. We like Putin. We like the Russians. And while they say they're not trying to create a counterweight to NATO and a new alliance, we kind of know they are. And that's why they met. And it didn't go Jake Sullivan's way. God knows, I don't think much does, but that's another story. And I think this is why they leaked this. And I don't think the Chinese are happy about this meeting being leaked, because it was supposed to be, ixnay on the meeting by the Chinese.
So what are the details?
So the details are simply this. Jake Sullivan made the case that China is being a bad neighbor by the fact that we have so many things linked together in our economies. We have hugely leveraged links regarding economic interests. So basically, Jake Sullivan was reminding Yi that, hey, we're really good friends here, and you need to kind of see things our way. And the second factor, which I just mentioned, was this thing with Putin and Ukraine. You're just simply adding to the pain and suffering of the Ukrainian people. And the Chinese basically said, and okay, I think Yi apparently reminded Sullivan, which he didn't like, that the Russians have grievances that go back a long time. And I don't know if he did this, but this is what I'm going to do, which I think the Chinese did do this with Jake Sullivan. Mongolia, 1337. Ottoman Empire, 1570. Sweden, 1708, with no meatballs, by the way. The French, 1812. Japan, 1905. The U.S., us, 1918, trying to help the White Russians. And Germany, 1941. So the Chinese reminded Jake Sullivan that the Russians have grievances. And in addition to the paranoia which is created by this, the Budapest Accords from 1994, which created Ukraine, also had embedded in that agreement a promise to not let NATO march east. And they did. So I think Sullivan got a history lesson he didn't like. And I think that's why the White House got all kind of, well, we're just going to leak the meeting then. I think that's what happened. I wasn't in the room. Just saying, I wasn't in the room. This is my assessment.
I understand the points, but you also could say Ukraine's got grievances as well. Don't invade our country. Don't bomb our children. Don't bomb our hospitals. Don't bomb our maternity wards. And don't forget that Ukraine had a signed agreement from Russia saying, if we give you back these nuclear weapons, that you won't invade our country, that Russia had this agreement. Yeah, and what did they do? They invaded anyways.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree.
It's not like Russia's the only one to have grievances here, right? But
I'm just saying that basically the Chinese were unmoved by Jake Sullivan's pleadings.
Right. I mean, I totally get. I actually think that China has actually. I'm a little bit surprised that they haven't been more on Russia's side here recently. You can let me know your thoughts on that. Because I mean, I'm seeing North Korea
They don't want to be
really,
obvious about it, Jimmy. They don't want to be obvious about it. I think,
right. Because I
yeah,
mean, I'm seeing North Korea really on Russia's side here
yes,
recently, and even Iran.
yep,
China, like even with the United Nations votes and stuff, like they're
right,
they're not even voting with Russia. You know, we
absolutely.
we've seen
No,
these votes where Russia's only gotten, them and four other countries to even vote with Russia on
yeah,
whether the annexations were legal or not. China's not even voting with
right.
Russia.
China is trying to chart a course that China will benefit from. China is very clear on this. Look, anybody who studies the modern Chinese nation's history recognizes that Mao went against certain allies. Right now, because of Mao's decisions back in the 50s, India is still kind of an enemy because of issues that happened in border disputes. Those disputes still exist, Jimmy. And I've argued if you want to be able to essentially hold China accountable, you got to play the India card. Remember during the Cold War, Nixon went to China, played the China card against Russia. Well, times change. And so right now, because the Indians are such a powerhouse in the international community, with a population that's only second to China, with a democracy in place that actually likes us for the most part, because we have a lot of economic interests, we should be working with India to replace China as our primary trading partner, and we don't do that. And this is where I'm kind of frustrated myself by the fact that we have not done a better job, especially after COVID, especially after finding out there's some things we could not rely upon from the Chinese during the COVID time. So this is something that the Biden administration seems to, like many things they do, they just don't know how to manage it.
Yeah, managing China is. If me or you were president, can you imagine trying to manage China?
Well, I could, as a matter of fact. I mean, look, I've advised chairmen of the Joint Chiefs, and I've advised CIA. I was an advisor to Mike Pompeo, and we'd have discussions on some of these issues. And you'd be surprised at some of the things I was asked regarding China and North Korea and Iran. So the question becomes more about how do we be clear about our objectives? Because I think it's part of fundamentally what happens wrong with our foreign policy. Most our politicians do not recognize their first job is to help the American Republic maintain itself and create conditions for letting people. What's the term? It's like happiness or whatever it is, pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
That should be their job. Instead, they start meddling around and trying to play God. We get the neocons, who I don't appreciate and don't like, who want to get involved with international affairs, not for benefiting the United States, but somehow believing they can change the path of other countries. And I don't think it's our interest to do that, because the moment you start meddling around with other countries, you start getting in trouble and you become resented by that country. So I think we have engaged in far too much foreign policy without clear objectives of why are we doing it, just because we can. So
Yeah, here's a perfect example. So I covered this in a video. It was probably like a week or a couple weeks ago at this point. China's their Department of whatever released a map here recently, like an official map, and expanded their borders a little bit on all
yeah,
sides, and actually took a portion of Russia and a portion of like India and all these different things, and just expanded their borders on all fronts a little bit. And I think it was India was like, we should go to war over this, and even took a little sliver of Russia even. And I thought, yeah, imagine.
so the Chinese have said this, Jimmy. This is like, and Mark, we mentioned Mark Milley. Mark Milley lectured me. I was on the transition team, the Trump transition team. Mark Milley lectured me on the very thing you and I are talking about. He said he's spoken to the Chinese generals, his counterparts, who basically confirmed to him that the Chinese PRC, CCP, have a long-term goal of expanding the Chinese borders and influence back to the Han dynasty, one of the dynasty which had the most access.
And who else does that remind you of? Taking over land in any way possible. Russia.
Russia, right? Exactly.
Literally taking over country after country, right, in whatever, whether it's
yes,
Belarus by infiltrating their president, say, oh
right,
yeah, we're
of
friends,
course,
we'll give you nukes.
Of
where
course.
it's Ukraine and Crimea and uh,
Right.
Moldova.
It's the same club, Jimmy. It's the same club, and that's what I'm saying. It's like every time I hear the Biden administration explain these things away, oh, it's not that bad, it's that and the other. They don't seem to comprehend that. Yeah, these people are as bad as they appear to be.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts here in the comments. I will have Colonel Tony Shaffer back here for a part 2 video here coming here very soon in a couple days. So make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, and then the bell icon is completely free to do so. I have new videos that come out here on my YouTube channel every single day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you guys what is happening here in our country on a daily basis. Thanks for liking and sharing these videos. Click this video here to see a major bombshell that just came out. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.